at the meeting a couple of
There we are.
parents. Oh, hold on.
Ooh. Okay, we on?
Hello, people in the room. I can hear you.
Hi, have you been able to hear us all along?
No,
No.
no, you just popped back in. I was just
Yeah.
chatting with Rosie.
Yep, we couldn't hear you guys either. I think, or Patrick, we're 7, right? So if we can hear Rosie, then we are quorum, correct?
Yes.
Correct. Oh,
You ready to start?
yeah.
Okay.
Who wants to chair the meeting?
I think Rosie is
Okay.
vice chair, so she.
There's no Seth.
Bill's not here? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so we'll call the November 14th, 2023 meeting of the Hamilton Master Plan Steering Committee to order. And the first thing we'll do is take attendance. Since we are, since I'm on video, we need to do roll call. So starting with Ted, is that you
Yeah,
over
Ted
there?
Ackworth here.
Dana Alera here.
Marnie Crouch here.
And Rosie Kennedy here. Oh, do you know what? I will take a step back and just see if somebody would be willing to take minutes tonight.
I'm already on it. I'm taking minutes.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, so let me see. I think the first thing on the agenda, as I recall, is to approve 2 sets of minutes. I need to pull up my agenda here. So sorry. I'm asleep. I didn't realize that Bill was not going to be here. Okay, so the minutes are, there were last month's minutes, which was October 11th, I believe, and then March 8th of 23. Somebody want to make a motion for those minutes?
I had an edit on the
Oh.
March the 8th meeting.
Okay.
It was a whopping typographical addition of an E in Carly's name. It's only,
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure.
Carly doesn't spell her name with an E.
I know, I put in an E, okay.
Oh, okay, I got mixed up.
And you know what, I couldn't find her last name, maybe we could make that added as well.
Oh, yeah, I can just, who should I send it to? I'll double check the spelling, but,
You could send it to me, that would be great, because I'll edit the minutes.
okay, I'll just email it to you, Rosie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Patrick, for catching that. I definitely was not sure. Okay, so with that edit in mind, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I had some edits with respect to the October 11th meeting, but I'm an inveterate editor. I apologize. So I think, I'll skip some of them. But there was in the second item, it said discussion ensued, period, of summaries of blah, blah, blah. So that period was misplaced. There shouldn't have been a period after discussion ensued of summaries. So that sentence should probably read, discussions ensued of summaries of 11/13/21 and 5/17/23 community meetings, which should be added to the minutes. And I think there was another period on item number 4. There was a period after community meeting planned for Saturday, so it should have been delete the period and lowercase planned.
Does somebody have the minutes that they're editing? Because
Yeah, I mean, these are Ted's minutes, so I can just pass my edits to Ted. How's that? And I'll forego anything with respect to the other ones.
Okay, Marnie, is that all?
I passed them to Ted, so he can I mean, I think he has, can you bring that up and just make those corrections and send them to Rosie?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're very minor. I mean, we're not talking substance.
So are you saying that all of your edits are typographical in nature?
Yes, 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 yes.
Can we approve them?
Yes, subject to,
Yeah, we can make a motion that says something to that
Minor
effect.
edits, okay. Yeah, okay, so would somebody make the motion?
I move that we approve the minutes from March 8th, 2023, and October 11th, 2023.
I'll second that.
Second, okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We'll have to do a roll call again.
Marnie Crouch, aye.
Dana Alera, aye.
Ted Eckworth, aye.
And Rosie Kennedy, aye. Okay. So, all right, so moving on, we'll have a recap of the October community meeting. And Tyler, you're on.
Yes, thank you very much. So, yeah, I just wanted to start off by saying thank you to those of you who were able to come and help out. We really appreciated it. And both of our absent members are here. So the two of you, I can hopefully give you a sense of how things went. So, yeah, I think overall we sort of did what we set out to do. There were some snags along the way. It turned out to be a very beautiful day. We got somehow double booked with the pumpkin carving thing. There was crazy traffic for both Judy and I. There were some misprints on some of the materials there. I was sweating, but we got what we needed, which was a nice, participatory conversation about the actions that residents want to see implemented in the plan. So despite all those snags, we got where we needed to be. So we're working on like a formal write-up on the meeting like we did for the last two, and that'll include just verbatim all the notes that were taken. And that'll go up on the website and you'll all have it. So basically, well, before I move on to anything else, Marnie and Rosie, did you have any observations from the meeting that you feel are pertinent? You don't have to, but it's always interesting to see what others who were there thought of it.
Yeah, my impression, there was a lot of focus on climate change, and I like the way that you redirected it a little bit so that we didn't just make that our sole focus.
I just got a text from Bill. He's just now leaving work, so he should be joining us in his car momentarily.
Oh, and here he is.
Huh.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll keep talking because this is all stuff Bill knows, but attendance was a little lower than we've had, although still not terrible. We had at least like a dozen people, I think, which is pretty good considering, it was probably one of the most gorgeous days of the year. Hey, Bill, can you hear us?
Muted.
He is muted. If he's in the car, he might just be
There you
trying to
go.
listen.
There you go.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Hey, I'm sorry about that. Hey, I apologize. I totally spaced it. I was thinking in my head it was tomorrow night. I was still at the office. I'm in the car now, so I don't know, Rosemary, if you're there, if you can just kind of drive the meeting, I'll add in where I can.
Okay, that sounds fine.
All right, sorry.
It's okay. And hello, welcome.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, Bill, so you haven't missed too much. They approved some sets of minutes, and I was just going over the high-level stuff from the community meeting, since we have both Ted and Dana here who were not there. So I was just asking if any of the members who were there had any, reflections or feedback on the event. That goes for you too, Bill. I'll give you a chance. You might just want to be quiet and drive and listen, but I'll
Yeah,
give it
no,
a shot.
I thought, at first with the lower attendance, it was a little disappointing, but I actually like how it worked out and we did it as one big group versus, more smaller groups and then came back together. I think there was some good interactive discussion.
Yeah, that was essentially my takeaway too, is that we got where we needed to be and we got some good ideas. So what's going to come from that meeting? So I've been combing through all of the notes and trying to extract some concrete implementation items from those, add those to the ones we've already come up with, and get a good list going. And then we also, the next concrete action we need to take is to start meeting with town staff because they have a good idea of the town's implementation capacity, because a lot of this is going to fall on them to implement. So we always need to check with town staff to make sure their priorities are included. We're not proposing anything that they just straight up can't do, and that just they always have good notes for us. So I think initially we had discussed doing like a series of interviews, but talking it over with Judy, she had a very good idea that we sometimes do. And that is to have just like a larger staff meeting with like representatives from each department sort of all together, like going through the list of proposed items. So I think we're going to try to arrange that for probably early December is what would make the most sense. But we have to Patrick, I'll probably email you about this later to work out the logistics. But we just sort of decided to do that a couple days ago, discussing like what the best way to move forward with the implementation plan is. So that's really the next step. So let me show you all, apologies to Bill, the beginnings of this draft implementation program, so you can get a sense of what this document is going to be. That is the window. So let's make it full screen. Zoom in so everyone can see it. Okay, there's the little thing in the corner, the HW Cam view. That is actually helpful because I never have any idea what people can see on my screen. So this is the start of it. So the way this is arranged here is there's headings for each of our goals. This is the land use goal. Here, the transportation goal, all material you've seen. And then under each are some associated action items. And knowing that obviously a lot of action items can fit under more than one goal, further the goals, for further multiple goals. There's a few ways to do this, but the one way we've done it in the past is just sort of find a primary home for it and then cross-reference the other elements that it also intersects with. So this first action under land use would be to engage in a community planning process to determine desirable use scenarios for the Winthrop School in the event that that land becomes available. So that can also intersect with economic development or housing, because those are types of redevelopment uses that could appear there. But it fits maybe primarily under land use, and you can argue and debate about what the primary one is. That's fine. But just to put it somewhere and then cross-reference, this will affect these other topics. You don't always have to associate the actions with a specific goal, but it does help to connect the idea of the goal and just more concretely illustrate what the action is trying to accomplish, in service of what. So it can be helpful to associate it with a goal, even if it falls under multiple like that. And so then the other items you have are responsible parties. These are acronyms, but at the beginning of it, you'll list all the potential parties, boards, committees, staff, people who might have responsibility for a given item, and list those. So I imagine, and this is not final, but I imagine that, you know, a community planning process, the planning board would be involved, and perhaps the town planner as well, because, you know, those are the people who do planning.
Could I just interject here? Because this whole goal with respect to the Winthrop School, the planning board is looking at integrating whatever happens at the Winthrop School site with the town center. We don't want to see the Winthrop School as just a one-off and look at development there in a vacuum. I mean, if there's mixed-use development on that site, we have to consider that in relation to making the downtown more walkable and also just expanding the downtown and its usability, if you will, and that just, it opens up so many other issues in terms of parking and access and this, that, and the other. But the Winthrop School site is never going to be looked at just in a vacuum. It can't be, particularly if it's mixed use. I mean, it has to be connected to the remainder of the town to be viable. I mean, that's just good planning. You just don't want to have this isolated 14 acres, you know, separated by some residential areas and whatnot. So I'm a little troubled by that goal, which seems very specific, when in actuality, it's just part of a larger picture about how the downtown should be developed. So, I mean, that's, the planning board has already talked about that, and actually, we didn't have an actual binding vote, but we had a sort of a roll call, if you will. Should we look at the Winthrop School as part of the downtown? And the planning board was unanimous, and yes, it should be integrated into the downtown. And that ties in with the goal of economic development. You know, everything has to be looked at holistically from the Wenham line up to Patton Park.
Yeah, thanks for that comment, Marnie. I think that is great. I agree that it's good to take a look holistically, so I made a little note to maybe reconsider the wording of that to like more explicitly state that.
I would, because it makes it look like the town is just going to take that site and do with it what it will. When in actuality, if that site is developed, the ramifications of that are enormous, and it really should be tied to the downtown. But then we also have to look at the intersections of Asbury and Bay Road and Walnut Street and Bay Road, because there could be significant traffic associated with that. So, you know, that's a real spillover into a lot of other areas. I think this goes to my point that, you know, when you look at land use, it affects so many different things, and it's really the end result of the other goals is how you develop the land once you ascertain what the goals are. So it's like the last piece of the puzzle, not the first piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, that came up at the meeting, if I recall, and I think we are probably going to do that, like move that to the end. So just to explain our thinking, at least on, you know, what do you do when you like propose an action and there's like a million other like interconnected actions that, you know, have to go along with it. So in the implementation plan, the goal is to have like a concretely like item that could in theory be like checked off. So you can say, did we do like a visioning process for this site? Yes. And then another item could be do a traffic study for that intersection, and that's another like item to check off, yes or no. So, you know, we'd want to list those actions out. If there's like 3 or 4 or 5 or however many like important actions that we want to include in the plan related to that site, we can list them all out. But this is the time to sort of get granular and specific, and just have, you know, because if you try to bundle all of that into one, you know, it becomes a complex item. So just trying to break it out into specific tasks is really what we would want to do in this section. So I take your comment though. Does that make sense, or?
Yes, I mean, I see your point, but, you know,
Right.
planning is, it is a holistic endeavor. I mean, you know, if you
Yeah.
want to improve your downtown, you have to look at the entire downtown, not just a piece of it.
Yes. And there will be plenty of other actions in here related to that. Those come up in a few places. So, and like there's ways, like if we want to think about maybe like more explicitly cross-referencing like specific actions, like if there's certain actions that really like go together as pairs or groups, we can think about ways to like visually show that and organize it. There's a few ways we can do that. So we'll see what we can come up with in terms of conveying the interconnectedness of some of these actions. There's more than can be done than this sort of draft that I have on the screen now. So we can try that. Just to finish going through the columns of like what's typically included in this section, sort of just to guide decision-making, like a rough like level of complexity. You know, that can relate to like the, you know, not just the difficulty, but also like the, does it have a million different moving pieces? Are like 8 different boards and committees and departments going to have to work together on this? Or is this something that just one person or group can take the ball and run with? That sort of describes that. The time frame, and these all are all terms that like are going to be explicitly defined. So when someone's reading this list, they don't have to wonder what you know, near term or immediate means. We just say it right here. So if something is immediate, that means you know, it should be started now or within the next couple of years. Near term, 3 or 6, and longer term, like up to 10. And we can, those aren't set in stone. Those can be a little different depending on how the actions are shaking out and what makes sense for Hamilton. But essentially that helps prioritize, but it's not so like prescriptive that you can't, you know, jump the queue to do something else that's supposed to be longer term if you know, just happen to get the funding for it, for example. So that's just a like rough priority ranking based on like how long might this even take to get going? Like how long will it take to complete? Like, you know, there's some things that take years. And then just the sort of level of resources, both in terms of money, staff time. So that's anywhere from like, you know, something that doesn't cost much at all to implement, like, you know, reviewing a bylaw, you know, the town can sort of, you know, if it's simple enough, you know, the planning board can sort of take that on. Or on the higher end, it's like, this is something that would require like new positions and like infrastructure we don't have. So those pieces go together to help, you know, in the future when people are going through and looking at these actions to get a sense of, you know, how to prioritize them and, you know, what goes into each. So this is basically the format of the document you'll get when we present the full draft implementation section for you all to look at next month. So are there any like questions or comments about any of that?
Right, how are you dealing with the MBTA communities and the 3A issue? And that's really an impending issue that the town has to confront. And obviously, whatever happens with that, it's up to the town to approve it or not. And, you know, what would be interesting are the ramifications if the town were not to adopt that. I think it's contemplated as an overlay district, but what would happen if the town voted against it?
Yeah, so we definitely want to have some item in there addressing that. The difficulty is it's still kind of in flux, like we kind of don't know exactly what would happen if the town, you know, opted not to comply. So my thought about this, I've talked with Judy a little bit, because we know, you know, it's an issue. You can't in 2023, write a master plan and not say MBTA communities is something you need to think about. So I think that basically what we decided was like some item that is basically just like the town needs to, work with, town council and, town boards and figure out, a clear path forward to compliance. And, then it's up to you whether or not you take that path. But it's hard to get into too much more detail because we kind of still don't know a lot about the implications of things, but you also have to address it. So that's sort of like the idea that we're thinking. I don't have the exact wording, but something to that effect. Just like develop a plan for compliance because the state is gonna, the state wants you to comply, and then, it's a town decision what to do with that plan for compliance, basically.
I mean, would we have a section that says we would comply with all state regulations, laws, statutes, whatever it is, and that's one of others as well, maybe 40B and other things will work towards compliance? Would it be a catch-all for all of those? Would it be its own section?
We could say that. I think we'd probably want to be a little more specific than just like comply with everything, but
because that's a big one, right? I mean, I know we just talked about even the Winthrop location, right? That might be part of it. It's like, how does the planning boards and other boards and committees come together to evaluate and assess and make sure we allocate resources and land, accordingly. I don't know how to word it, but you're right. It can't be silent to the MBTA stuff. It's too close.
Right, it's very interesting, this MBTA communities, and what's required of towns is to basically comply with the statute, develop a district or sub-districts, whatever, that meet the requirements in theory. And then that goes to the voters. And the town of Littleton just went through that process, and the majority of citizens rejected it. And so it's unclear what the ramifications of that will be.
Yeah, they do still have a full year before any negative consequences would kick in, but yeah, it's not totally clear. There's going to be legal challenges. There's going to be legal debates. It's going to be in the courts. It already is.
Right.
So we can't really predict like what the ultimate outcome will be. But I think, like I said, the best thing we can recommend is that Hamilton figures out what it would take to comply.
Could you make a very sort of non-committal statement? Hamilton will take steps to comply instead of saying we'll comply, because what if the voters did not vote for it?
I think compliance is to put it before the voters. That's
Right.
compliance. I mean, the
So
town
we've
can't
got to do the
dictate
due
to-
diligence, right, to put it in front of a town meeting, so citizens can make an informed decision.
Right, to
Right.
develop a plan that can be
Right,
brought
I
to.
mean, I don't think the Commonwealth
Right.
can dictate to the town of Hamilton that it must do this. I mean, it
Right,
can
right,
dictate
that's
that it be
what I was getting
presented
at.
to the town, and
But
then.
it can lay out the consequences, though, right? I mean, there are
Right.
consequences.
Oh, absolutely. And and that raises all sorts of other questions as to what those consequences really are. And, now is not the time for me to raise all the questions that I have with respect to this, but it is, it's really a big issue for a lot of communities, particularly those the size of Hamilton and Wenham. And then like Littleton, which is sort of comparable size to Hamilton. Because if you were actually to build the number of units that are called for by the Commonwealth in Hamilton, it would change Hamilton forever. It would no longer be Hamilton, it would be something else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, imagine pulling up to that, plus Wenham right over the line doing the same thing.
Right. It would be.
It's absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt it would ever actually happen that way. But anyway, regardless, I do like the idea of the recommendation being get a proposal in front of town meeting. That makes sense if that's the route you guys want to go. Anyway, there will be something, and you'll have a chance to, you'll have a chance to push back if it's not exactly what you're all comfortable with. So, yes, there will be MBTA communities talk in here. Is the very short answer.
So you're now in the process of actually finalizing the master plan, so when should the master plan steering committee actually anticipate getting the document for review?
So it would be good to get you the implementation plan to review by like mid-December. I gotta actually, what date is our meeting set for? December scheduling is always such a nightmare. Let's see.
I'm not sure that
Wednesday?
we've set a date yet.
Well, it's the second, 1 week we reschedule it and I already forget what day it usually is. It's usually a Wednesday, the second Wednesday.
The
So that-
13th. That would be the 13th.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking about like, oh, tomorrow I have a meeting. I just had Wednesday in my head, sorry. But I do think whoever brought up the point, and I don't know if, Patrick and I talked a little bit today about an update to the select board, but I know the planning board needs to adopt it. So is the right next step to get it in front of us and prepare a joint meeting with the planning board and select board at once or separately, just food for thought on how we start informing people who need to be informed.
So, yeah, so it ultimately does go to the planning board for approval. I got the email about select board update. We can talk logistics with that later. I need to talk with Judy because I think she'd also want to be on that. Anyway, so in terms of timing, I think, so our, contract for the work is through the end of December. So I'm envisioning, like, I really want to stick to that. That would be good to finish on time. Always love that. So if we actually can get you, the implementation plan is the last substantive piece of it before just formatting, putting it together. That's the last substantive piece of it that you haven't seen. So if we can get your comments on that in December and incorporate those and have a full complete draft by the end of the year ready to go, then you can have a meeting in January where you go over the final draft and potentially vote to recommend it or, with changes or, whatever you feel comfortable with at the time. But the ideal scenario would be that you then approve it, or not technically approve it, but recommend it to the planning board for approval. That's sort of the ultimate vote that this committee makes, is to officially recommend the approval of this plan. And so then, the planning board can hold however many hearings on it they want. It's sort of in their hands, because it's their responsibility to adopt it. So they can do that however they wish. So that's sort of how
Could I just ask you, so this document goes to the planning board, and then the planning board do they have to adopt it verbatim, or can they make recommendations of how it should be changed? And if they want changes to it, who would make those changes? Would the planning board make the changes? I mean, I'm a representative of the planning board, but I'm not speaking for the planning board. I'm not authorized every time I vote on something or make a comment. The planning board is not fully up to speed on this document because we really, the heart of it is going to be the implementation, and they haven't really seen any of that. So I think we need to figure out this process, because if the master plan steering committee likes it, the select board and the planning board really haven't had an opportunity to vet the entire document, and what are the respective roles, and how does the final version of it, which would be then the governing document, be created so that the planning board can vote one way or the other on it.
Right, so, yeah, so starting from the beginning, the planning board, it's, it's their decision, to vote yes or no, and they can say, not unless, et cetera, et cetera. They can,
We can tweak it.
I'm sure they'll have some comments, even minor ones. So basically, I think that, after discussion and public hearing, if the planning board has comments, we can fix it up. We'll make sure the document is good, even if, we're flexible like that. We won't leave you guys hanging. But I guess I would say that this committee should endeavor to get it in like the best shape possible. So there's as few substantive changes as possible with the planning board. But if there's corrections to make, we'll correct it. We're not going to not correct the plan that we gave you. So I think often it is the case that the other boards don't get their hands on it so much until the master plan committee has voted. There's been, it's not like there's been no opportunities to participate. We've had public hearings, we've had, these regular meetings, but obviously they're probably not going to be like reading it in depth until that time. So yeah, of course they'll have comments, and that is okay. I think, is there anything I didn't answer?
Well, I do have one more question, and I apologize because I should have looked this up. So that the
Yeah.
planning board approves this master plan, but do we have
Yes.
to have any kind of formal notice with, notice in newspapers or general circulation and public hearings before we actually make a decision with respect to it? Or do we just assume it's, that notice is sufficient and we can just take whatever the master plan steering committee presents to the planning board and go from there? Do you know the answer to that? That would be one under state law. Do you know, Patrick?
Yeah,
I don't. That's a good question, though. I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was wondering the same thing, whether or not, because it's a guideline, it doesn't need all of that, or it has to follow the same process of public hearings and wait periods and such. I assumed it's a guideline and we could just adopt it.
Yeah, the Commonwealth doesn't get to weigh in on a town's master plan, do they? I mean, but the master plan has a specific format that has to be followed. So, for example, the planning board just, and it was voted on at town meeting, propounded a revised stormwater management bylaw. So that was adopted by the town, but then it goes to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General signs off on it. So, and it's not effective until that happens. So even though it's voted on at town meeting, it's not effective until the Commonwealth weighs in. So it's the same process applicable to a master plan.
I've pulled
It's not
up-
a bylaw or
yeah,
anything.
no, so
I just,
the
I
state,
just
the
wondered.
state technically does accept it, but as long as you include the right elements and everything, they basically accept them all, unless you've done something really strange. It doesn't have a regulatory force. So
Right.
you do send it off to the state with record of the planning board's vote, but it's sort of a formality, honestly.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I've pulled up Mass General Law relative to master plans, and it talks about the various elements that are required, which we've been working on, plus the implementation program element. Then there's a paragraph. Let me read it to you. It's fairly short. Such plans shall be made and may be added to or changed from time to time by a majority vote of such planning board and shall be public record. The planning board shall, upon completion of any plan or report or any change or amendment to a plan or report produced under this section, furnish a copy of such plan or report or amendment thereto to the Department of Housing and Community Development. That's all it says.
What's the statute there, Patrick? So,
That is
sure,
section 81D.
of 40A?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think.
Chapter 41, rather.
Oh, chapter 41, okay.
Section 81D.
Oh.
Sorry, Tyler.
Okay. No, that's fine. Yeah, that's my understanding. I think sometimes planning boards do public hearings, but I don't think it's required that you do that. Oftentimes the board will want to get some, public comment on it before they vote, but I think that's a decision they can make.
Yeah, I like to think we've done that for them as well. But it sounds to me from what Patrick read, we just need to show and demonstrate that we've gone through the process. We have a directional strategic plan that's going to be the guideline on and framework of how we make future decisions. The specific decisions will probably be made and followed all the bylaws that do have to have public hearings and so forth. But this is more just a directional guideline.
Oh, yeah. So
Plan, I guess.
don't worry about if the state will approve it. The state will approve it. We know how to do these. They're not like super strict on them. Some states are, but
No, I'm just worried about getting it caught up at the end when it gets in front of the select board and the planning board.
Yeah,
That's why I'm wondering if we should have a joint meeting even prior to the year end, dare I say, or send a draft out and get them better versed on the flow and content that lies within.
Yeah, we could do that. Yeah, I'll talk to Judy and see if she has a specific recommendation for how to thread this needle. But yeah, I mean, the state will approve it. It's just a matter of, and I think it really varies depending on the personality of the planning board. Sometimes they will want to really, workshop it and be more involved. Sometimes they're just like, if the master plan committee likes it, then, we'll take a read through and vote yes on it. So it really is up to the board because ultimately it's their decision. So they can make that however they choose.
Well, to play devil's advocate, if you will, even though we've had a lot of community meetings, we don't have that actual final document called master plan. We've had meetings on components of the master plan, but the public hasn't had an opportunity, and neither has the master plan steering committee for that matter, seen the final product. And so even though public notice wouldn't be required, it's never a bad idea to just say to the public, the planning board is going to be considering this final document, speak now or forever hold your peace. I mean, comment if you have any comments, having the whole document in front of you, what say you? Because as I said, we've seen pieces of it.
Oh yeah, and plenty of towns do it that way, have that final public comment period. That is totally fine if that's what you guys want to do.
Well, it
So,
makes it more
yeah,
effective
so our
if you
job is
have
just to,
public
wrap up these components and get something nice for, you and the rest of the town to consider. So, any other?
Did you-
Yeah.
Just a question, just to clarify, when do you think you will have the final version for the draft for us to review?
I'm hoping if we can meet with the town staff like late at the end of the month after Thanksgiving, maybe like early December, then hopefully we can have that like full draft of the final section, the implementation section, before your December 13th meeting. And hopefully you'll have time to then review it before the holidays get crazy. I mean, we'll see. We can be, if it doesn't work out perfectly, we can be flexible. We'll make sure the plan is good and complete, and we'll do what we have to do. But that's how it would go ideally.
Okay.
is there
So-
anything, and sorry if we had a visual and I couldn't see it, but is there something we would want to get out ahead of I'm just worried the timing and when you can meet with department heads. I love the idea of doing it like a staff meeting with everybody. I think that'll work nicely, and Patrick can help you coordinate that. But is there something we'd want to get out to the planning board and select board ahead of that? With a timeline to say, here's where we're at, here are the components, we're gonna flush through with staff the implementation piece, which is this, so that they're not digesting everything at the end of December. They've got something along the way as well, or does that make sense?
So Bill, are you talking like a general update or just like showing them drafts for comments? Just so I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It's a general update in my opinion because they really haven't had one. But or is it like, what would you be presenting to the staff to show them? Like, is it even just that template that says, here's what we're going to run through with with department heads? We've already gone through it with several community meetings with the master steering committee. And now something can go to the planning board and the select board that shows really that template and what it looks like and what the town staff are going to look like. I'm not sure if that makes sense. I'm just trying to, do this in waves so that they see it and it's not like, oh, it's done here, bless it, see you later. Because that's a lot to digest. I don't know if anyone else has a thought. I'm just trying to think of ways to get stuff out there. Coming into this call, I was even thinking, the presentation we did at the community meeting. I thought that was great. Maybe we just update with that, and then there's a last page that's the timeline. Department head meetings, we'll work through that. Here's what this template looks like. Here's how the goals, tie in with actions and so forth.
Yeah, I think that the finished product is what I want to see. Really.
I know, but that's not, my fear is, what I'm hearing is, we're done at the end of the year, and that's when the finished product's going to come on New Year's. Am I wrong, or?
That's probably what it'll be, but
Well, no, but the planning board can't approve a rough draft. I mean, we need the finished product.
No, but they've got to get smart, right? They've got to be,
Yeah.
they've got to start digesting all of this. It doesn't just, you don't just drop the book on them on the last day of the year and expect them, to be able to speak to it, for a while until they read it. I'm just worried we're gonna wait and then drop everything, as opposed to kind of just doing it in waves and making sure they're at least versed in it.
No, with
And the
that
select-
problem, yeah, the problem I see with that is if a draft goes out, then this person would have comments and that person would have comments, and it seems like the goal was to get a final product to the planning board and the respective department heads as a fait accompli, and not have it be perpetually in a draft stage, because people really are going to have differing opinions forever, and at some point you have to make a decision. So I'm just wondering if it's wise to circulate a draft. I don't know, but Tyler, what do you think?
No, and that's fine if everyone feels, that's okay. I'm just getting a lot of comments that, people haven't had visibility. Yes, they haven't come to meetings. I give brief updates almost every select board meeting on where we're at, what we're doing, but I keep getting, it's like, oh, what is this that you speak of type of thing, and I don't know if the planning board, if you're getting that on that end as well, but, I just feel like, it's been a long process and not a lot of readouts, to the boards that have to adopt it. But if everyone feels like, hey, and you're not wrong, Rosemary, I think that is right. I mean, if we drop the book and say, hey, here's what we recommend, and just understand, we lose a lot of resources at that point, potentially, from a consulting basement, from our time and such, unless we extend things. It just feels to me like there should have been more readouts with those boards and committees who ultimately adopt it.
Makes sense.
But
Yeah.
Well, I think you can split that baby a little bit. I mean, I think that the final product will have really nice graphics and tables and pictures and this and that and the other, but it's the text that's important. So, well, it's important to me, but I think that perhaps having almost a final draft would be worthwhile circulating to the select board and the planning board with the final document to come, knowing that it really is just a matter of formatting and inserting pictures and graphics.
Okay, so you're talking about just like a full text draft, not like broken up into sections piecemeal, but just the full document thing, but not worrying about the formatting and giving the
Right.
boards a chance
Yeah,
to look
not-
at it
not
while we
worried
work on
about-
that.
Yeah, that. And it isn't as if the planning board would really dive into it until the appropriate time, but at least the members would have the document and could absorb it and read it, and so that when we actually put it on our agenda, the comments could be really pertinent to what's in the document. And, or alternatively, if you think it would be wise, I mean, we could consider it and then transmit our comments to you for inclusion in a final draft. And it may be that the planning board members will have no problems with it at all. I mean, I just don't want to speak for them because you just, that wouldn't be appropriate. I mean, someone may perceive something that no one else has thought about, and it's something that should be in there. So how to deal with that, that's the issue.
Yeah, I can't really see any problem with letting boards start reading like a rough draft when the formatting's not done. I guess the only thing would be to like clearly communicate this is not how it's gonna look in the end. You know, just, but I don't think that's like a huge problem. And you know, just putting it out there that like if we really like run up against it and just like cannot get the, you know, everything that needs to be done in the time frame, you know, we can do a contract extension. It's not, you know, we'll see this project through to the end, one way or another. So yeah, I mean, so I don't have any problems with the circulating a complete draft. That seems like not a big ask. Okay. I didn't have anything else on the agenda, so I'll leave it to the committee if there's anything else you want to talk about.
Does anybody else have any other comments, concerns, or thoughts about anything?
Well, here's
Yeah,
one
I mean-
thought. Our next meeting, we're now talking about the 13th, but I mean, if the end of the year is a deadline everyone wants to meet, I mean, is it feasible to have the meeting on December 6th? Just throwing it out there. And that, of course, pushes the date that you'd have to meet with town boards and get your rough draft ready, but I mean, at least that would give
Yeah.
a little more time.
So, okay, so my inclination is that the meeting with staff is very important. That is something we have to do. So let's figure out when we can do that. And that will decide when we can meet, because we can't really finish up the implementation section without, you know, going through it with the staff. So I think that, can we move it to the 6th? I don't know, depends on when we can get staff together, I think is the only answer. So we'll have to find out.
Can everybody attend that if we do change it to the 6th? Is that a
No, I have
good
school-
time for
we have a
everybody?
We have a school committee meeting that night because the next night is the first day of Hanukkah. So we moved our school committee meeting to Wednesday.
Okay.
So that wouldn't work for you.
That doesn't mean that you guys can't meet, just means I can't be there.
It's true. I could do it.
You're talking about December 6th?
Yep. Wednesday, December 6th.
I probably would not be able to do that.
It's 2.
I can do
Just in time, we're just about done.
Oh, hey, there he is.
Hey, sorry about that. So, I don't know what I missed, I had to shut down, but I think, it was a good discussion, but what I'd like to do is, even if we have a timeline laid out or something, we have a meeting Monday, Select Board, and I don't know if you guys have chatted about some type of update, not for Monday, but even if I came in with a timeline and said, hey, this is our plan, we're gonna come in towards the end of the year with the final product, maybe we're gonna get some stuff out ahead of that, maybe they'll be like, oh, that's fine, or maybe I would think the planning board's gonna want it sooner
it. Yeah,
than later.
we want a timeline too. I mean, I assume it's going to be about a 50-page document by the time you add all your pictures and whatnot, tables, graphics.
Yeah, longer than 50.
Longer
Yeah.
than 50. So yeah, it's not something that one can absorb the night before a meeting. I mean, you really want to read through it a
Right.
couple times. So, the select board, I assuming wants to have some kind of input here, and since the planning board is the body that will approve it, I mean, obviously, the more time we have to evaluate it, and if necessary, provide some feedback, the better.
Yeah, and if the planning board wants to take its time reviewing it, I mean, that's okay. We have lots of other work to keep us busy. While you all look at it, if it takes you, a month or 2 months, I mean, maybe that's not, maybe you guys don't want to let it go that long, but I mean, we just need to pop back in and make some edits, probably, and hopefully they're minor, but,
Right.
the
okay.
board should take the time it feels it needs to be comfortable, voting to approve it, basically. I don't think you should rush it.
No. Okay.
Okay, if it looks like we're not going to have a quorum on the 6th, can we go back to the 13th then? What do people think? And Bill, I'm sorry, I'm usurping you here. You're here now, so you take over. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine, because I kind of missed that. I shut the call down. So you guys talked about moving it up, I think, to the 6th, and did we decide people couldn't make it on the 6th?
I think 2 of us can't make it.
Two of
Which
them.
is not, I mean, which would, right, that still would leave you with a quorum if you want to do.
Let me look at my calendar.
Well, if the others can make it, right?
Correct.
That's a Wednesday, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I can make it.
I mean, scheduling is one of the things you can do over email without breaking open meeting law.
Yep.
There we go. So, I mean,
Well, why don't we play it by ear then? I mean, depending, if the 6th works because you've met with town staff, fine. If you need to synthesize what you learned from town staff and we need to go to the 13th, that's fine too.
Okay, yeah,
I'm sorry, I was just going to make a comment that Town Hall is moving in the next week, and
Oh, yeah.
I don't know exactly if the very first of the month, they might still not be sort of organized enough. I don't know, I'm just trying to give them the benefit of the doubt and just kind of thinking about that.
We'll either have this room available and functional, or we'll be at the library.
Okay, okay.
I also was going to offer on the 6th, if this is helpful, my meeting doesn't actually start until 7 PM. If you needed me to start, to have the quorum to start the meeting, I think I could leave and you guys could continue. Is that true? I don't know.
good
I'm just
question,
saying, I
actually.
could be
I
here
don't
for a
know.
bit, not very long, but
And I could probably,
feel
I have an
like-
event starting at 6 on December 6th, but I could also show up late.
You guys are so accommodated.
Just put it on your phone and
it's a good group.
do a bill. Yeah, I feel really bad.
Oh,
I
don't.
just had Wednesday in my head, and I was like stressed about tomorrow getting out
Stuff
early.
happens.
But
Oh, yeah, it was
yeah,
fine,
we should
though.
shoot for
Meeting
that.
went off, we had a
So
quorum,
is
I
Patrick,
wouldn't
you're gonna
worry
help
about
him
it.
plan the staff?
Sure.
Stuff, so the, if we shoot for that, we can do it over email. And if we can't do it, then we have the 13th as a backup or both, if we need to.
Sure. Yeah, so I'll coordinate with, I'll email you tomorrow, Patrick, probably, and we'll
Okay.
get the ball rolling on trying to figure out how to make this staff meeting happen. And I'll keep you all up to date on how that ends up going.
All right. Any other business to conduct? So I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
right.
Technically.
We're
if you
adjourned
roll-
at, what is
Aye,
it?
aye.
7:39.
Okay, have a great night, everybody.
Good night.